Friends, a couple of months ago, I took a DNA test. Perhaps you've taken one of these things too, right? I was very excited to receive the results of what they call my ancestry composition. So I clicked open on the email and I entered my password, and I learned that I am 99.5% Ashkenazi Jewish. And I was a little disappointed. Meanwhile, Haley was completely unfazed. She said, a white Jewish kid from Great Neck. What did you expect? It's a good question. What did I expect? Some big family secret to be revealed? Did I expect that I would have some new, fascinating aspect of my identity to delve into and learn all about? Did I somehow expect that I would suddenly turn out to be someone other than the person I've been all along? There's a growing diversity of identity in our Jewish world, which adds richness and depth to our community. And it's a wonderful thing, and we've come to celebrate it. And here I am, Mr. Plain Bagel. Barely a poppy seed. So I shared this sense of disappointment with congregants after a Shabbat on the Beach service over the summer. And one of you said, plainly and with a lot of compassion, that's who you are. Don't try to be anyone else. What extraordinary wisdom, especially for tonight. Believe it or not, friends, our sages connect Yom Kippur tonight to Purim, of all holidays. And they do it in a number of interesting ways. The two holidays, Yom Kippur and Purim, are related linguistically, as our tradition officially refers to today as Yom HaKippurim. Read a certain way, that can also be pronounced as Yom Kippurim, the day that is like Purim. But it would seem that these two holidays could not possibly be more different. How is today possibly like Purim? Today is the most serious day on our calendar. While on Purim, we're supposed to laugh and joke and make fun of everything. Today, we don't eat or drink. On Purim, we love to eat hamantashen, and it is a mitzvah to get drunk. Tonight, we wear white. On Purim, we dress up in all sorts of colorful costumes. And most importantly, those costumes help us pretend to be someone else. But on this evening, tonight, we're supposed to put a metaphorical mirror up to our souls. And throughout the next 24 hours, we are supposed to take an honest accounting of who we truly are. And I wonder, how many of us even know who we truly are? We all spend a lot of time trying to be someone else. We shape ourselves according to the messages that the media sends our way. We curate ourselves to present an appealing facade. And that's what it is, a facade on social media. We contort ourselves to fit in with a group of friends. And we adopt attributes that we think will lead to success in our chosen profession. One of the Jewish stories that I first learned as a teen, and that shaped in many ways how I see the world, is that of Rabbi Zusia. On his deathbed, Rabbi Zusia began to cry uncontrollably. His students and his disciples all gathered around him, and they tried to comfort him. "Rabbi, why do you weep?" they asked. "You are almost as wise as Moses. You are almost as hospitable as Abraham. Surely heaven will judge you favorably." And Rabbi Zusia answered them, "All that is true. But when I get to heaven, God will not ask me, 'Zusia, why were you not as great as Abraham?' Or 'Zusia, why were you not as great as Moses?' I'm crying because God will ask me, 'Zusia, why were you not more like Zusia?'" It's human nature to think that if we only could live someone else's life, we would be so much better. Or we think that if our own lives were somehow significantly different, we would be better. Rabbi Sharon Cohen Anisfeld writes, "Countless volumes on the shelves of the self-help section tell us, you can be better, you can be happier, you can be richer, you can be thinner, you can be more well-organized, more beautiful, more popular, more powerful, more successful," and the list goes on. Now, when I study the Ten Commandments with our confirmation students, I point out that many of those 10 are relatively easy to fulfill. No idol worship? Check. At least not tonight. Don't murder? Okay. But there is one of those 10 that practically every human breaks every single day. Do you know which one it is? Number 10, do not covet. That commandment says, don't covet what your neighbor has. Don't covet their family, their house, their possessions, their wealth. In other words, the point of the 10th commandment is that every single person is unique. You don't need to be anybody else. You don't need to have what anybody else has. Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler taught, just as another person's eyeglasses have a different prescription and would be of no use to us, so too anything that another possesses would not help us live a good life either. Yes, friends, Judaism helps us see that each of us is equipped with exactly what we need to make an impact on the world. We already possess everything we need to become the person that we dream of being. And Judaism provides a roadmap to becoming that person that we dream of being. The Talmud teaches that upon departing this world and arriving at the heavenly tribunal, one will be asked the following 5 questions. Number 1, were you honest in business? What counts, as we know, is not our material success, but rather our integrity. As you can imagine, in this job, I hear many eulogies. And I can assure you, those who love us most will never remember us by the title that we achieved or by the size of our bank account. They will remember us for our moral stature, for our deeds of virtue, and for the example that we set for them along their path of life. Question 2. Did you make time for Torah? Torah shows us how to live a good life. Kalonymus Kalman Shapira, the great Rebbe of the Warsaw Ghetto, teaches that teshuvah, repentance, is our chance to return to the person that we have not yet been, the person that we dream of being. So this question really asks us, were we dissatisfied enough to want to improve ourselves? And were we gentle enough to give ourselves room to fail in the process? Question 3. Did you engage in deeds of creation? In other words, did you sow seeds for those who came after you? Did you raise children not to be just happy, but to make an impact, to create, to invent, to challenge the status quo, to transform the world as it is into the world that we know it ought to be? Question 4. Did you improve society? We all treasure the values Judaism brings to us because we know they are world-changing. Equal justice, the worthiness of every single human life, tzedakah. It's within each of us to live those values. And in doing so, we make God's will manifest in the world. And the 5th and final question, did you engage in wise conversations? Wisdom is not about facts. It's about what is truly important. Author Houston Kraft notes the difference between being nice and being kind. Nice happens when it's convenient, when it's comfortable. But being kind requires sacrifice and commitment. Kindness happens when it's hard to do. Kindness is what's important. When it really comes down to it, these are the questions that will be the measure of our lives. Did you live with integrity? Did you seek to improve? Did you create? Did you repair? Were you kind? These questions are a good reminder that life is not about living up to some unachievable divine standard, but rather of simply living up to the standard that we know we've already set for ourselves. If you are satisfied with how you might answer these questions before the heavenly tribunal, I think you can say with confidence that you have lived a good life. A congregant recently received a diagnosis of a life-changing degenerative disease. As I spoke with him, he said, I try to lead my life a certain way, and I leave it up to God to judge. I deeply admire that. I think we all do. And if, on the other hand, maybe you're not so satisfied with how you might answer these questions, here's the good news. There is still time. A congregant sat with me recently and told me all of the ways that he had failed as a father. I want to note that he didn't give himself enough credit for the ways in which he had succeeded. But more importantly, he struggled to recognize that he still had time. He still had the opportunity to change course and heal wounds. What could be more worthwhile? Yes, tonight is supposed to be that mirror in which we can see reflected the true nature of our souls. At the end of our time on this earth, we will each be judged simply by what we made of the gifts that we were given. Did we achieve the full measure of righteousness, of which each of us is inherently capable. My favorite Jewish teaching of all time, the one that probably guides my life more than any other, is this. The day is short, and there is so very much to do, and we are so very busy. But the reward is great, and the master of the house is waiting. Fortunately, our tradition is also reasonable. This teaching goes on to say, you are not required to complete the work, but neither are you free to absent yourself from it. Because I know so many of you, I know that you have not absented yourself from the work. I know many of the small and quiet and private acts that are stamped upon each of your souls. You generously supported a struggling family member. You took a child in crisis into your home. You forgave your spouse, even when doing so was exceedingly difficult. You sacrificed your own dreams to care for a sibling or a parent. When a friend was at their lowest point, you were there. You sat with them. You held their hand. And there are countless more examples. These deeds of kindness will never make headlines. They may never even be known to anyone else. But they are the ones upon which I believe we will be judged. They are the deeds that will allow us to answer God's questions at the end of our days. Why were you not as great as Moses? No human being could ever live up to that standard. Why were you not Zeusia? We can all live up to that measure. At least 99.5%. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be so.